We all become compost, but equally, depending on our belief system, there is that continuation, there's that continued connection with the physical world where, if this is in your beliefs, where we will be able to come and commune with those who we love, perhaps at certain festivals like this within the year. Hey, I'm Tanya Wilkinson, and this is Death on the Daily, bringing the conversation about death out of the shadows and into the mainstream. Because along with birth and change, if there's one thing that's going to happen to us all, then death is it. And we're going to explore how death actually shows up for us on the daily in a multitude of ways, and how when we allow ourselves to accept and to be with death, how it can teach us a whole heap about how to live this life well. So welcome to this solo note to self episode of Death on the Daily. And today's conversation, we are rooting into those rich cultural traditions that maybe are in our own culture and ancestry or in others that can really inspire us to connect with and to find that right relationship with death. And this is actually a conversation that I'd anticipated having with a guest. So my guest this week is Wilke Roy. And in our conversation, we had intended, since Wilke is based out in Mexico, to speak to Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead Festival. But our conversation went so deep into the psychologies of our fear of death and those death in the daily practices that can help to support us in understanding where those fears come from, as well as death in the daily practices that can really, really help us in finding right relationship with dying, death, grief, and all endings in life. So we're in our full flow. We didn't have a chance to speak to this. So I thought I'd do a solo episode that really roots into these traditions, because you just step outside at the moment. If it's anything like where I'm at in the UK, Halloween is absolutely everywhere. You can't escape death. However, I do wonder how many of us actually connect into the significance of Halloween as a festival of death, of remembrance, of understanding that life and death connection, and actually that the roots of Halloween really are in ancient pagan traditions that are very much rooted in the cycle of life within which death is obviously a crucial part. So let's start there. But actually, I'm going to take us back to the ancient pagan festival of Samhain, which is celebrated from the 31st of October to the 1st of November. So Samhain marks the end of the harvest season, as well as being an acknowledgement of autumn and winter soon to income. And actually that when you look at our cycle of life, the themes of autumn is dying and the theme of winter is death. So it signals that bringing in of the death part of the annual seasonal cycle of life. And on Samhain, Celtic pagans traditionally believed that the veil between the living and the dead was thin. And with that thin veil, this being a time that's traditionally been sort of connected into as a time where we can speak to our ancestors, where we can honor them, where we can remember them. And Samhain eventually became Halloween, with many of the traditions that you see all the kids out in the street doing, like trick-or-treating, as well as carving pumpkins. That was all started and rooted through Samhain traditions. Next up, I want to speak to Dia de Muertos, which is celebrated mostly in Mexico, but also other areas of Central America, as well as it's got a real global footprint. In our global culture, I've been really looking to Dia de Muertos for inspiration, actually, because I find it a really powerful, joyful celebration and honoring of the dead. And it spans 2 days. One of them really, really touches my heart. So that's the 1st of November, which is Dia de los Angelitos, Day of the Little Angels. And apologies as well if my enunciation is terrible. I am very welcome to be corrected in the comments of this video. And then on November 2nd is the celebration of adults who have died. So it's believed that on these days, the dead, they return to the world to be with those who they love, to be with their families. And this festival is celebrated with colorful decorations, with music, with food, with beautiful, beautiful flowers. The marigold flower is really associated with Dia de Muertos, as well as personalized ofrendas, which is altars. So these are altars where the dead are really, really celebrated. And you might have seen these, I don't know if you've experienced them online or you've seen them, on TV, in the movies, etc. But they are so, so beautiful, and they include pictures of the dead. And what these festivals show is that death isn't an end, it's a continuation. That death is a part of our journey of life. And when we have this understanding, we can also see that actually death is essential in order for new life to come through. We understand that, much like in nature, that which is falling from the trees now, the leaves on the floor, will become the compost from which in spring, those seeds will be able to take those nutrients and grow. And just as that, we all become compost, but equally dependent on our belief system, there is that continuation, there's that continued connection with the physical world where, if this is in your beliefs, where we will be able to come and commune with those who we love, perhaps at certain festivals like this within the year. And the other festival to acknowledge right now is Diwali, which this year actually coincides on the same day as Halloween. Now, obviously, very, very different themes. And the sort of overlying theme of Diwali is that bringing in the light, that good triumphing over evil, which I think is a really beautiful, that bringing in the light is a beautiful metaphor as well of, where can we shine a light on those who we love at this time? But also there's a really powerful link into death that Diwali also has. So throughout the festival, there are rituals which honor the Hindu god of death, Yama, as well as our ancestors. What I've done is I've just sat with all of these different cultural connections, these beautiful, beautiful, diverse, but also interconnecting cultures, to really understand what can we learn from them, what can we take from them, not just now, but actually at any time in the year, as to practices and ritual moments and connections that can help us to find that right relationship with dying and death. So first up, we've got death as a celebration. What Dia de Muertos does is really embraces remembrance. It embraces death. It embraces that connection to our ancestors. And I think we hear way too much, particularly in places like the UK, where people say, someone who I love has died, but literally it's like every single part of them has been erased from everyday life because there's no one around me who is willing to speak to them, to remember them with me. So what Dia de Muertos does is it encourages us to keep our ancestors close in memory and spirit. That Day of the Dead, really, really remembering them and celebrating them, including when, which it inevitably will, it feels painful and hard. If you're looking for a starting point, connecting to death on the daily, I always say actually a really good entry point is nature, because right now actually we are flowing through autumn and winter. So why not celebrate the death that's happening, the leaves falling from the trees? If you've got a veg patch or plants that are dying back in the garden, celebrate this moment of death and connect into the fact that all that is going back into the earth is going to form that new life come spring. So second up, we have inviting our loved ones' presence more into our lives. Is there any areas in your life where you can invite more of your loved ones to be with you in each and every day? Creating that bridge between worlds through rituals of remembrance. Do you have photos of them anywhere? Is there a special space in your home that really commemorates them? For example, for me, I've got an altar where I honor our daughter. Are you able to speak their name out loud and speak to those memories? And if not, can you express this need with your friends and your family? And finally, how can you bring joy into remembrance? Now, this one is not intended to paper over the fact that actually death is painful. And in these moments of remembrance, it's totally okay to feel sad, to feel devastated, to let those tears flow. But I love connecting in, specifically when I look at Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead, around the vibrant, bright celebration of life and death. So how can we bring joy into these rituals of remembrance where we bridge between those worlds of those of us who are alive and those of us who have died? So what memories bring you joy? What memories make you fall on the floor laughing? What memories make your heart burst in love? Write them down or speak them out loud. And equally, if you want to flow these into any rituals of remembrance, onto an altar space that you've got, or, into a photo book or anything else, do it just to really keep that energy and that joyful memory alive. And finally, ending this episode with my note to self, which is an invitation to myself as well as to you to really root into your ancestry and your culture, as well as to your creativity within you, to understand what death rituals and death connection practices can really support you, whether it's on the daily or whether it's less regularly for a celebration like we're experiencing right now. My note to self says, when I root into my ancestry and culture, plus listen within to what I feel creatively inspired to do, what rituals can I bring into my year where I honor my ancestors and beloveds who have departed? So that is an invitation to us all, and wherever you choose to flow in this and whatever you are celebrating right now, I hope that this connection to death not only supports you in the now, but also as you flow throughout the year, throughout all of those little and big endings in life. Sending you lots of love. Take care of yourselves. All of my gratitude to you for joining me for another Dead Conversation. Death on the Daily is edited by David Strutt. The music is Set Free by Katie Gray. And I am Tanya Wilkinson. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be over the moon if you can rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really helps me to get the word out there. And if you want to say hi or to hear more about my work as a coach and death doula, including how I support my clients to navigate their death on the daily, then all of the ways that you can connect with me are in the show notes. I'll be back soon with some more Dead Conversations. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something inside, and we'll never make it.